So we're here day 12, I think, on the Camino. We're here in a town called Belorado in Spain. And a big thank you to Joaquin for hosting us again in his albergue here. This is the second time we came to Belorado. And it's been an interesting Camino so far. The weather has been very clement. It's not warm this year. Definitely not since Logroño. It's been low 20s, which is fine for walking. Belorado, remember it very much from the last time, because in this town there is a convent of Claretian sisters, quite a large community. And I remember we were leaving Belorado to go to San Juan de Ortega, which is the next town, and we called into the monastery and we bought some chocolate, and they had adoration, and they were the only chapel on the Camino with adoration. And I was we were really impressed by this beautiful chapel, by the sisters and so forth. Now, over the last few months, there's been a big polemic with these sisters because they have decided to return to tradition in their view. They've decided to go back to Mass in Latin. They've decided to, they've really gone with the Sedevacantist bishop, which I really don't agree with. But it's a hard time here in Spain. It's a hard time. They've certainly woken up the ecclesiastical authorities, and letters have been sent and visitors have been sent and so forth. And it's hard for them because they had 4 convents, but only one convent now has sisters living it. The other 3 convents are closed, as far as I'm aware. They have no communities in them. So it's hard for sisters to see convent after convent, community after community closing. I mean, does religious life serve anything at the end of the day? But in Spain there is a crisis crisis in the faith. Most of the bishops are asleep. As they administered their dying church, and that's the truth of it. More Catholics will go practice yoga than go to Mass, because they don't know. They haven't been formed, they haven't been catechized. But I did vividly remember the church back in 2021 when we visited here, because it was the only church with adoration. I said, well, that's something interesting. There's the only church in the whole Camino that offered adoration. Now, maybe there is adoration offered at different times, but I suppose it was the only church that we called into along the Camino, and many churches are closed. So I feel sorry for the sisters. I did call down to the sisters yesterday and I recorded the conversation, but I was just thinking afterwards, since I didn't ask permission of the sisters to actually publish the conversation on YouTube, I'm not going to publish it because it wouldn't be fair on them. And I think the women are amazing. I think the sisters are I admired their fight. But as somebody said here in their town, the war is over for them. They're not going to win this battle. They will be excommunicated and so forth. So, poor sisters. But what I will say regarding the situation, our faith is more than monasteries, churches. Our faith is greater than that. Our faith is a personal relationship with God. And, all of these things, God is stripping them back from us. He's stripping back the churches, the monasteries, the structures. He's stripping it back so that we do that interior journey of being saints. And sometimes we get so held up or hooked up with the past that we forget where God is leading us. And God, Christ, didn't have a house. He didn't have a cathedral. He didn't have a church. He didn't have a temple. He walked from town to town and he brought his disciples from town to town. He preached the good news to the poor, and he gave them hope. And we sometimes we forget about this in 2,000 years later. Sometimes these structures, these monasteries, these convents, while they are beautiful, while they are sacred, Christ wants us to do the hardest journey of all, which is the interior journey, which is union with Him. And that's not easy. That requires denial. It requires obedience, which obedience is not easy. It requires obedience, poverty, chastity, and not everybody's able to do that interior journey. But that's where Christ is leading His church at this moment, is, on that interior journey to Him, union with Him. Here in Spain, you have these two saints, St. Teresa of Avila, St. John of the Cross, who talk about union with God, who talk about, moving from one mansion to the other. St. Teresa of Avila, in her work, The Interior Castle, or Las Moradas, talks about this spiritual journey, this spiritual union with God. And that is the number one mission we have, is to be united to God. And sometimes God will take away everything so that we will have union with Him. And, so that's my mission, my message to the sisters here. Sometimes crucifixion requires obedience. And, you will bear fruit through that obedience. And don't give up the faith. But I wouldn't go with a sedevacanist bishop. That's my personal opinion. But anyway, I'm not going to lambast these women, because I think they've suffered enough, and they do love the faith, they do love the church. But there's a lot of money, a lot of power, a lot of interests, a lot of politics, a lot of church politics involved in the situation here in Belorado, which is, not just clear cut. And these sisters, in my opinion, have been have been lambasted from one side to the other. So I'm not going to be another voice in that debate. But my message to anybody that loves the faith, you need to do the interior journey first. You need to have union with God. That is the number one mission of any Catholic. And from that union, which is a renunciation of yourself, fruit will come. You do the possible, and then God comes in and does the impossible. We need to be united to Him and do His will. Go out, preach the gospel, give the good news to this world. That's so desperately needed. Go out in the streets. Go out like Christ did, town to town. Some people will hate you, some people will receive you, some people will love you, some people won't. Some people will persecute you and others won't, because this gospel, after 2,000 years, is more needed today than ever. There's so much despair and hurt and pain in this world, and people need hope, and we need to give hope. Anyway, just an update from here from Belorado, and we're closing one Camino and beginning another Camino, because we're going now to Oviedo. Well, we're taking a few rest days. We're going to Garabandal on Sunday. We're going to Home of the Mother on Monday, Covadonga, Home of the Mother, and then we're beginning our Primitivo Camino next week. So there's that's the update. I'd love to do more stages, but you realize after so many days, you need to pace yourself. You can't do everything in one day. But that's what we're hoping to do. And the Primitivo Camino, for anyone who hasn't done it, is far harder than going over the Pyrenees, because you have to do these mountains a few times. So we're well prepared for it now. Anyway, keep us in your prayers, and God bless you, and buen camino.